Criticism which some viewers may find disturbing.
As 14 royals lay bleeding and dying on the marble floor of the palace, they all saw the face of their killer. It was their own Crown Prince, Dipendra.
There's no doubt in my mind that it was him. How can I mistake somebody at such a close range, especially a person I've known for so many years?
We all were a big question mark. Why us? And we all needed somebody to come and tell us why this happened.
This is the story of a forbidden love affair, a family tragedy, and a national nightmare. We reveal how Nepal's Crown Prince carefully planned and cold-bloodedly executed a royal massacre. The boy who would grow up to kill his family was born in 1971 into the medieval-style court of one of the last absolute monarchies on earth.
It was the grandest rice-feeding ceremony I've ever seen. He was the loveliest little child ever. He was so cute.
The little boy's father, Birendra, was devoted to his son, and Dipendra could do no wrong in the eyes of those around him.
Nepalese are very aware that this is the next king. And so just about everybody, I suppose, gave him that much more respect ever since he was tiny.
In 1975, the 3-year-old Dipendra watched as the world's royalty gathered to pay their respects to his parents upon their coronation. His father, the king, was revered by his subjects as one of Lord Vishnu's incarnations. And Dipendra would grow up knowing that in turn, he too was destined to become a demigod. His parents were keen for the army to play a part in their son's upbringing.
I remember seeing during his father's coronation, he was in full military gear, and he gave his father a very sharp salute. That was the Crown Prince. That was the future Crown Prince. It was very militaristic.
Behind these palace gates, the little boy ruled over his own fiefdom. Even his father's top army brass would prove no match for the Crown Prince's strong will.
The top of the pond was very slippery, you see, and the Crown Prince started running. And I was afraid that, he might slip and go into the water, you see. So I requested him, Your Royal Highness, don't do it, because you might fall down. But he didn't listen to me. So I said, no, you can't do that, you see. And then he got very annoyed. He said, well, you can't order me, General. General, he said, General, you can't order me.
The young prince had to be taught that with power came obligation and self-restraint.
I used to say that the Crown Prince had inherited the best of both parents. King Birendra was a very wise person. He wasn't clever, clever. I mean, you tell him a joke, you'd have to tell him about twice or even 3 times before he understood it. But he was very wise. He tended to be almost like a hermit. And I think she made up for that side of it. She's the one who arranged all the social events, and she's the one who arranged parties. She was very intelligent, very sharp, and she understood something before you were halfway through a sentence.
Queen Aishwarya was strong-willed, and she also was very tradition-bound and was not above using pressures of her position to try and get family members to do things the way she wanted them.
The would-be demigod had inherited many of the Queen's qualities. These similarities would bring mother and son into conflict throughout their lives. On his 8th birthday, at an age when most boys would be playing with toy guns, Dipendra was given a real pistol.
All the king's sons, from their childhood, they were sent to a teacher who could teach them the art of war. So art of war comprises, learning of all the weapons. He was exceptionally good shot. To tell you frankly, he knew more about weapons than me. I'm an army man.
He talked about guns all the time. That was his favorite topic. I heard him talking with his own generation, and usually the topic would be about guns.
"22 years later, on June the 1st, 2001, the city of Kathmandu was preparing for a Friday evening of traditional family gatherings. 2 days earlier, Crown Prince Dipendra checked how many of his relatives would be attending the royal family's get-together.
I was asked, are you coming or not? Which means it was important to know whether I was going or not. And that I can only think of as he wanted to know how many people would be in the room.
The king had placed his son, the Crown Prince, in charge of security. And from the outside, the royal palace seemed well protected against surprise attack, with military police guarding its perimeter. However, each Friday, as Dipendra knew, the king's bodyguards were dismissed so the family could relax in private.
I could see His Royal Highness Crown Prince Dipendra. He was playing billiard all by himself. His Royal Highness was very kind to ask me if I would like to have something to drink. And I said, well, I'd like to have a famous grouse Scotch whiskey, which was there. His Royal Highness poured me one, and he showed me his glass, which was half empty, and he said he was also having famous grouse.
The gracious host began a billiard game with his brother-in-law.
He did order on the walkie-talkie for some joints to be brought to him, and which was delivered by an orderly a few minutes later. And he smoked that in the billiard room itself. Actually, I got a little scared at that point of time because, I remember thinking, oh God, what if His Majesty walks into the room?
The Crown Prince was well known for being able to handle drink and drugs, so his royal relatives were surprised when he appeared to lose control.
I did comment to my sister. I said, I don't think he's drunk. Why is he giving the impression that he's drunk? Because he's banging into furniture and into people. And I have seen him genuinely drunk, but he never does that kind of thing.
We thought it would be appropriate to take him up to his room. It would have been more embarrassing for His Majesty to come and see his son, the Crown Prince, passed out, essentially.
I don't think he could have just casually disappeared from a gathering, not somebody as important as him. So he needed this excuse. So I think it was premeditated.
Dipendra's telephone records show that the last person he spoke to was his lover, Devyani Rana, at 8:39 p.m.